All the bhakti, all the ritual.
Hello, my love, and welcome finally to the India vlog. I have almost been back in Australia for a month now, and I've needed that time to process and fully land back and digest everything that I experienced, all the unfoldings that have continued to take place since being back here. And so here we are with me ready to share open my heart, share some of what I experienced, some of what the stories are from my travel, and also some of the absolutely stunning and extremely sentimental footage as well. If you have hung out with me in the online world for a little bit, if we connect on Instagram or if you listen to the podcast, you'll probably have heard me share before that this pilgrimage that I joined in India was a very intuitive decision. It definitely was choiceless. It came through me, and it was undeniable that it was something that I was going to be doing. My body and soul knew that before my mind had caught up. That took another week or two. And that it's something that had been in my vision for a decade. So back when I was bedbound with chronic fatigue syndrome, I created this massive, beautifully colourful vision board. And there were multiple references to India on that. And it's not a trip that I've ever tried to make happen or that has ever been particularly like front of mind intellectually or that has nearly happened and not come through. Last year, maybe October or November, I was in the second part of an ongoing training that I'm doing. It's called Rishi training with my meditation teacher who actually led this pilgrimage, Laura. And in that training, all of the content and all of the knowledge that I am learning is Vedic knowledge from the Vedic tradition, which originates from India, as is my meditation practice, by the way. It's a Vedic meditation practice. And as she was teaching over those 3 days, each time we do another section of the training, we sit together in community for 3 days. It's amazing. It just became more and more known that I was going to be going on this trip. I was going to be going on this pilgrimage. She was referencing different temples or different celebrations or festivals like Mahashivaratri, which we got to be part of while we were over there. And yeah, my body and soul just knew. It was really cool to just observe my mind and like what was happening of like, yeah, like I 100% know I'm going. And there's all this noise up here to just like allow that to play out as well and to answer those questions and to ask, for the answers I need. But there wasn't a lot, it was over Harry's birthday. So that was one of the main conversations I needed to have. Wasn't the best financial timing, but once I lent into this intuitive calling, nature rearranged, like everything just happened so that I was so taken care of from that aspect. And what else did I want to say about this? Yeah, I didn't even read the information, much of the information, like PDF package that was sent out. I just knew I was going and I knew it was where I was meant to be. And since meeting Harry, it's become even more obvious to me that this was something that I was being called to before motherhood. And so, yeah, it just became known. I did have plans to be going to India later this year, actually as part of the training, the Rishi training, to go to the north of India on that trip. So there was just part of me that felt like it might not happen if I left it that long. And also the north and the time of year and the itinerary is far more intense and cold versus the south where I went. We spent all of our time in Tamil Nadu, where it was as hot as it is here in Queensland, really warm, really humid, like beautiful, easy weather, other than the fact that you're absolutely dripping with sweat the entire time, but you're not having to navigate the cold or rain or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, if I was to share a couple of the things that definitely featured before I left, we ran the promotion in January for Reveal and Rise, where we celebrated Reveal and Rise turning 4 years old, which is something I'm so freaking proud of. And at that point in time, you know, when that promotion closed and 5 new women joined the space, I had this feeling and this knowing and this message drop in of just the word completion, of like, oh, okay, something about this feels complete. And I'm always very mindful to share, you know, with my clients and the women I work with, that when we receive these intuitive knowings or these subconscious messages or signs from the divine, that they're symbolic. They can be metaphorical, and they can reveal themselves and the details of what it is over time. And they're not always to be jumped on in action. They can actually be held in our heart and held in our awareness, where we get to be shown, right? We're not showing life of what we're being called into. We're opening our heart and discovering and being honest about what the desires are, and where we're feeling called, where we're feeling repelled, et cetera, et cetera. So when I say that word completion, that word and the meaning and the symbolism of it can just take so many different forms, as I'm learning. And I'll share more about in this vlog as well. That felt easy to accept. And then another moment was, I remember I was walking across the car park in West End in Brisbane to go and organise the last of my snacks for this trip. And this grief, I was just overcome with this grief. And I asked, what's this about? And the answer that I got was, you know, when you return from India, things are going to be really different. Like, Harry is moving tenants into his property and won't be living there anymore. You'll be moving in together. And yeah, motherhood and family will be a focus, and moving towards that and unfolding. We're not trying. We're still all in the preparation mode, but you know, it's just featuring more and more and louder in a really beautiful, natural, organic, undeniable way. Let's get in. I hope you enjoy. We're going to be moving between footage, and then I'll come back and explain some things to you, and then footage, and yeah, that's going to be the flow. So I'll see you in a minute.
Hello.
Hello.
Arrived at the hotel, showered, landed, meditated, and about to go and have some lunch in my first cute little Kurta outfit. So I flew from Brisbane to Singapore to Chennai, and I spent a couple of nights in Chennai, which ended up being absolutely perfect. It gave me the opportunity to adjust to the time zone. I had a loopy few hours of jet lag where I did not know if I was awake or asleep. It was hilarious. My advanced meditation practices saved my ass that day, because I really didn't want to have a nap. I wanted to just like move through the day and then go to sleep on India time. 4.5 hours difference. So it was a 4.5 hour longer day, but I also flew overnight. So I hadn't slept very well at all. And so it was perfect. It felt so good to land, to have no rush. I finished up some work whilst I was there. And then I think it was 3 other women who were joining us on pilgrimage also landed the next day. And I probably honestly wouldn't have left the hotel if it wasn't for them being there. I didn't have the courage yet. I hadn't traveled to India before. It wasn't familiar. And I hadn't had enough time to do any research in terms of like where I'd want to go, what that would look like, what was safe. whatnot. And the hotel had everything I needed. I was tired. I was happy to rest, have early nights, just like reorganize my luggage. And then, yeah, with a few of the girls, it was so nice. On the next day, we actually went out for lunch. We did a little bit of shopping, which was so nice. But yeah, it was just really nice to have such a slow pace. I had my first tuk-tuk ride, adjust, and then get up really early the next day. And we were back to Chennai Airport, where we met almost everyone from Australia. I think everyone was from somewhere in Australia, other than maybe 2 others or 3 others. There was one woman from the UK, one from Vancouver, and one from the US as well. And so this is where it felt like the pilgrimage really started. There was a group of us. Pandit met us at Chennai Airport as well. That's actually his hometown. He was hosting the retreat with Laura. And we all got on this tiny little noisy plane and flew into Madurai. And then I think we had maybe 3 or 4 hours road travel from there. I loved the road travel. We had 3 or 4 cars between the group. And so, yeah, it was really nice downtime. And there were some lengthy trips, yeah, of like 2, 3, 4 hours where we got to meditate, but also just really connect and have the most nourishing, soul-filling conversations and learn about each other and share about our experiences, which was amazing. We had a really smooth landing in terms of the first place we arrived at was a really beautiful 5-star hotel. We spent maybe 3 or 4 nights there, so we got to get in a bit of a rhythm. It was one location where we visited the same temple multiple times. And so, yeah, we landed, we had a sharing circle where we talked about why we were there, what had called us to India, and not only what our physical location was on the pilgrimage, but where we were at with where we were located internally as well, in terms of our state of being. And then we were pretty quick to like jump in some tuk-tuks and head to the first temple. So that's some of what you're about to see. Okay, so as you can see, we were like straight into it. And I remember on that first day, we got to the temple, we didn't leave until after dark. And then we had dinner out on one of the streets surrounding. And we couldn't wear our shoes because it wasn't a given that the entrance of the temple we went into would be the section of the temple we left. And it was enormous. This was in Rameshwaram. And I'm going to do my best to like remember the names of temples and towns and do my best with the pronunciation, remembering that too. But it was honestly a whirlwind and it was such a blessing. One of the reasons I felt so much grief since coming back was I personally can never recreate the experience that we had. So much of it was just taken care of, and it created this amazing experience and privilege where I just got to be present in wherever I was. You know, we were cooked for, we were driven, and all we had to do was show up on time and not be left behind. I definitely got lost in a couple of temples and like left behind in the group, but that was part of it. And so, yeah, it was straight into it. And in this particular temple, we got to walk down the longest hallway of any temple in India, and it was just absolutely stunning. The experiences I had in India, I don't know that I'll ever find words for them. And we also I've got the itinerary here in front of me to help and prompt. We got to meditate in the shrine of Maharishi Patanjali. And in this particular shrine, or this part of the temple, not the right word, but room. A lot of people come if they have physical ailments, and there was something to do with part of their Jyotish reading or their Vedic astrology chart. There's a particular emblem that would be significant to their chart that they could bring, and that is then installed in the wall. And so the walls of this section of the temple just had all of these incredible emblems all made out of stone that were in the wall. And we got to meditate here a couple of times, and it was definitely the first very energetic experience I had on pilgrimage day one, where we sat down and we meditated in there, and the meditations were just something else in India. And to begin with, I felt like my entire body was levitating off the temple floor. And then this Kundalini energy just began to move, and it was like moving through thick syrup of just like my body doing its own thing, swaying. And I believe that Maharishi Patanjali cognized, brought to the world Kundalini yoga and the sutras, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe. I've also got my journal here from the trip, which I'm going to pull memories from. So much happened. I'm really enjoying reading it back. And to be honest, other than the first few days, there wasn't even time to journal. I made sure I bullet pointed where we went and what we did, and then just the themes of what I was moving through energetically. But other than that, yeah, it was a very present, body felt experience. And so just reading that back in terms of day 2, the next day, which you're about to see some footage of, we went to another temple. And before we went into that temple, there was this old historical shelter-like building where we did a puja, which is the ceremony of devotion. Which was really, really beautiful and just had me feel like I was so dropped into my heart. We had an incredible chat about karma, which just brought me back into all the teachings I'm learning about in Rishi training. And, karma, I think, for the majority of the world and society seems like such a basic topic of good karma, bad karma. And so for me to have now sat for 3 days straight and learnt purely about karma, I think is just such a testament for how much more meaning and beauty and that there is to understand about it. And so, yeah, you're going to see some footage of it. It was a water temple, an outdoor temple of the 9 planets. And it was particularly relevant to working also with your lineage or your ancestors and helping in the, I believe, definitely blessings, but also in the moving through and purification of karma on their behalf as well as our own. And so we got to receive some blessings, which you'll see a video of, I believe, of me personally receiving them and saying my family members' names. And then there was some construction happening there. So normally you would get in the water and walk around the stone. I don't know that they're necessarily muritis, but the stones that resemble the 9 planets. But because we didn't do that, we went out the other side of the temple into the ocean and just did a blessing there, which was my first India swim in the ocean as well. But, some of what I've written in my journal from that day, which just makes me smile now because of all the more intuitive moments and knowings that have come through. And, I used before that example of the word completion and how unknown the meaning of that can be, that it's not literal, it's not intellectual. There's an unfolding of what that word is either symbolic of or maybe even metaphorical for. And so some of what I just read back in my journal from day 2 was, there's a lot that feels off and outgrown right now. And unlike the past, so not the same as the past, it's not extremely clear and tangible. It's not that there's a wrong relationship. It's not that there's a wrong job. It's not that there's a wrong living situation. My best guess is that it could be less about removing things and more about adding, and that this thing to be added might be motherhood. And, the day before this word disintegration had happened and had come through for me. And it was, you know, the symbolism behind that for me was, you know, there's things that need to be phased out so that new things can be phased in, but they're not being phased out because they're wrong or they're problematic or they're causing pain or suffering. They've just karmically come to completion, and it is time for new things to be created and experienced. And I had a very vivid dream that night as well of, regardless of what it is that's being integrated in, whether that is business, whether that is motherhood, do it in more community. Don't sit in your home alone so much anymore. Get out and share. And, you know, these things just became major themes and messages that just continued to build and reveal themselves more whilst I was in India. Then that night you're about to see, we went back to that first temple again, and there were so many festivities happening. I can't remember exactly why. I think it was because one of the murtis, which is like, I think they're made of stone, the stone idols that resemble the god or goddess expression that is being worshipped. So it's called darshan when you go and worship. In that particular shrine was being moved to a different temple. And it's not the idols as such or the murtis as such. Well, it's not, that holds the energy. It's more of, and this is part of what I learned, it's more of like a visual representation of the energy that is there in that space that you're connecting with. And for me personally, when I learned that, it was actually easier for me to no longer focus so much on the murti, especially if they were maybe a smaller one, and to really just feel into the energy that was there and have experiences with that, which is also probably a really great segue for me to share a little bit about what the pilgrimage, like one of the core meanings of that the pilgrimage was built around, which was that we visited 4 of the 5 different temples that house the Shivalingas. There's one for each of the elements of nature. And that was really what informed a big part of the pilgrimage and where we journeyed through Tamil Nadu as well, which were representative of physical manifestations of Shiva that have taken place over time. And part of this is that we were following the pilgrimage or the journey that Maharishi did, who cognized what is now taught as Vedic meditation, transcendental meditation. The journey or pilgrimage he was called and shown to take after his guru, Guru Deva, passed or dropped his body. And Pandit, who hosted this pilgrimage with Laura, actually studied under Maharishi, and Maharishi was his guru. So normally in the indoor temples, you can't use your phone. You're not allowed to take photos or videos, but this particular night, apparently because there were so many festivities happening, it was a free-for-all. But that's why too, a lot of the footage of temples that you will see in this vlog is outdoors. There was never, you weren't taking anything inside where darshan was happening or where the shrines were or anywhere like that, but it is still phenomenal footage.
பேச்சுக்கான ஒரு தளமாக மாற்றியதில் ஒரு முதன்மை பெற்ற ஒரு பேச்சாளராக இருக்கக்கூடியவர் நம்முடைய ஐயா மக்கள் கவிஞர் அருணாகப்பன் அவர்கள். புதுக்கவிதை என்று சொன்னால்
everything Shiva is given the blessing for everybody. That's why shortcut mantra Shiva and Shakti. Always 50% Shiva, 50%. Wow. Look.
And so carrying on from that theme of Shiva, some of the footage you just saw there of us at sunrise on the beach in Rameshwaran, we were doing puja. So we learnt Shiva puja and mantra chanting, and we were given little crystal Shivalingas to perform puja to back home, and learnt how to do that as well, which was so magic. And just the things that were taking place were just incredible, like the cow walking along the beach in front of our puja ceremony at sunrise. And from there, we actually moved further down the beach and we went into the water for more blessings and swam again. And then we actually headed back to the same temple, which I didn't even realize it was the same temple we'd been to the 2 evenings prior. It's so enormous. And we did the 22 wells, where you walk around fully clothed for probably an hour or more, and you're going to 22 different wells where you stand in the crowds and in the group, and there is, I believe they're pundits, pulling the blessed holy water up from the wells and throwing it on you. And so, yeah, you're walking around just soaking wet, absorbing all of this water and the blessings and receiving the purification of facilitating karma to move and new karma to come in. And, you know, one of the things I was told and I was aware of before I went was that not everybody can visit these sacred sites. It's part of your karma if you're there. And it wasn't that I like dismissive of that, or, you know, I took it on, but I didn't understand it until I was there. And something that really it surprised me was that for the majority of our entire trip, we were the only white people everywhere we went. And so, yeah, the meaning and the richness or enriching experience and the good karma that had me be there and having those experiences was like beautifully overwhelming at times. And some of the footage you're about to see next was that we visited another temple that evening for sunset. Something I loved about being on pilgrimage is that you never knew what you were doing or where you were going or when anything was going to happen. There was like an itinerary, but that wasn't something that you were across all so much. But then India has her own plans as well, which like we experienced multiple times, and really like it brought so much humor and a lot of shared experiences within the group. So I was traveling with 12 others. There were 13 of us in total. Yeah, really like created some stories that we will tell for a long time and are still talking about this week in the group chat. But I share that because, you know, I was told to be at the car at this time because we were going to sunset, and I just assumed we were going back to the beach. And anyway, we turn up at another temple, and it was another outdoor temple. It was stunning. It was so quiet. We were almost the only people there. We walked up these stairs and there's cows, and, you know, the animals are just so calm, and all the flower stalls with the offerings and walking up these stairs, and then something I experienced whilst I was in India is when there was something to shift emotionally or energetically, there wasn't necessarily like a build up or a lead up. It was not there. And then it was felt, it was there. And then if you went with it, it just moved so quickly. And so one of the first significant emotional experiences I had was walking up the stairs to this temple. And I remember that curiosity of that word completion around business coming in. And, you know, I had intellectually and intentionally and consciously been asking questions and getting curious about, okay, what restructuring of the business needs to happen for it to feel sustainable and supportive through motherhood? And basically so that I could do both. So I could do motherhood and I could also still be doing my service and doing my work and also bringing an income in for my family as well. And nothing had landed yet, which felt completely fine to me. I feel like I'm maybe like revealing through this a little bit more of how I approach life. Before I created Reveal and Rise over 4 years ago now, it was exactly the same. There was a 6-month period of knowing that something was about to be birthed and revealed to me. And that it wasn't here yet. I knew it was going to be a group offering and that I was going to create a really safe, intimate space for women to witness each other and to inspire each other accidentally, not through intention, not through trying, but purely from being their real, vulnerable, messy, honest selves and asking for what they needed, that would bring so much richness and so much inspiration and courage and clarity to another woman. And then she would, you know, just the mirroring and the shared energetic in that space. But I didn't know how, like what the format was going to be and how it was going to be delivered. And I was in a long-term relationship back then as well, and had thought that motherhood was imminent then too. And so that needed to be part of the structuring. Anyway, suffice to say, I was just leaving it open and I was being curious about what are these restructurings that need to happen. And that curiosity was happening as I was walking up these stairs. I just noticed that thought come in of like, oh, I really wonder what's going to be shown to me and what this next season of business is going to look like. Anyway, I didn't have to walk too far to come up to the edge of the temple, and like you looking out over the land and watching the sunset. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay. There's some sadness here. And in not too long, I was crying tears. And I asked that question again of what's this about? What's this here for? Show me. And what I got to receive was that there is no next season in business. The next season is motherhood. And again, this is not literal, like not so like, okay, that ends and this starts. Right. And what is revealing itself is that there's no next major project or focus in business. The next major project, but like focus that is going to get my time, my energy, my love, my attention is motherhood. And I got to learn that the business as it is so true and so real to me, and that any restructuring of it, to the best of my awareness right now, would actually feel not worth it and probably inauthentic, because it would mean that I wouldn't be working as intimately with women. And I fucking love that. And something I am probably potentially the proudest of ever in my career is that I've discovered a way to support, you know, currently 21, but there's a few more spaces, like there's still more space there, to support that many women one-on-one daily, to the point where they are surprised and feel so satiated in the amount of support that they're receiving, how individualized it is. And I'm doing that without overcommitting, without burning myself out, without compromising my lifestyle. And, you know, the thought of restructuring that or changing that is not something that was lighting me up inside. And so, you know, and every time I pondered what that might look like or asked questions about it, it was always like, well, it would kind of be the same thing, but less intimate or more removed, or like, yeah, the support would be more distant and less frequent. And it just, didn't excite me. And then the other thing that I kept being shown and kept receiving as a message was, it is an absolute waste of time for you to develop new content or programs or teachings before motherhood, because you will not be the same woman after you birth life into this world. And that process of creating, carrying, and birthing life into this world is going to make your work prior to this, let me explain, but your work prior to this redundant. Not that everything I've taught is redundant, but to try and add to that right now in this next pocket of time would be irrelevant. And probably anything that I created that was new is unnecessary. Like the teachings that and the wisdom that I already share is undeniably transforming women's lives. And there's nothing more to be added until this new iteration of, yes, me, or like self, but also connection with and experience of that next realm of life that comes with creating, carrying, and birthing life into this world has been felt and experienced. And so that got to feel really fun. I was like, oh my gosh, it gets to be as it is. I get to carry it as far as I can, and then I get to find out, or I get to take it, the business in its current form as far as it can go, and then I get to find out what's next. There's nothing to be prepared for. And I can't know what's going to be needed, and how I am of service right now is so relevant and so aligned and lights me up so much inside, and is only ever being celebrated and valued by the women that are receiving it. So it doesn't need to be changed, which was really incredible to experience, and like relieving, but also just so exciting after building a business and always having some strategic major thing happening for however many years it's been in business now. Like maybe, I think this might be my 9th year, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that feels good.
Good photo.
Another day, another car trip to the sunrise. So most of the days, there was a morning that started at 3:30 a.m. towards the end of the trip, because we needed to be at the bottom of the mountain to hike to the mountain for sunrise. But most of the days started probably between 4:30 and 6 a.m. And then there were days where we weren't eating dinner till 8 or 9 p.m. But I think the latest night I was up was probably Mahashivaratri, which was maybe around 1 a.m. But most nights we averaged definitely 5, mostly I would say 6 hours sleep. And then we were meditating heaps as well. So I think it was day 5 that we left Rameshwaram. So really that first part, that was a third of the way through, we somewhat found a bit of a rhythm. So I was ready to shake things up and do things a little bit differently. And we were on the road for the next 3 days. We only stayed one night in the next 3 places. So we were moving around a lot. And probably the biggest challenge with that was our washing, because we're hand washing everything. And when you go to temple or to ceremony, you're in completely fresh clothes. So clothes that you haven't worn before, which meant that most days, if not all, you needed 2 sets of clothes. So when we're only staying one night somewhere, there wasn't enough time for things to dry. But we made it through.
happiness place. Then dancing and things and with Shakti.
With Shakti.
Wife, that is a fashion to open your heart. This is Akash.
Yeah. So this is the Akash Linga. So there's the 5 elements, water linga. Now we're at the akasha linga, space.
Two finish.
Finish.
And that also tomorrow in Kanjipuram. That is where we're lucky. Very good people. Very good soul.
So we'll go here and we'll see. And
So like any good trip, there's some things that don't go to plan. And the day we arrived on that third night of only staying in one place, it was a town called Tiruvannamalai, I believe. And we got to this accommodation and it was not on. It was so old. There was so much black mold. It stunk. Like when I opened the door to my room, it smelled like someone had just finished a whole packet of cigarettes in there. When someone put their key in the door, a cockroach came climbing out. And so that was one of these shared experiences I was talking about earlier that was really interesting, where we were just like, we actually don't want to breathe in this air, and like it doesn't feel clean at all. Luckily, the bed actually felt quite clean, and most of us had individual rooms. And so I was going to be able to, I'd already organized to go and sleep with one of the other women because she had 2 singles in hers. But we quickly decided that we were not actually going to stay there. But there was just so much going on in that town where like the hotel we thought we were staying at was not the hotel we stayed at, but we had a booking at that one, and there'd been like an accidental double payment at another, and then we didn't end up staying at any of them. And so, yeah, it was just like a beautiful opportunity for us to be adaptable and to laugh and to roll with the punches. And so the temple that we visited there, which was another one of the Shivalingas, we went there once. I think we'd planned to maybe go there the next morning as well, but instead we drove on through to Pondicherry. We got to stay in another version of that first 5-star hotel that we stayed in for one night instead, which was just stunning. But we were just like, we'd been on the road all day. India is dirty, and you know, you're sitting on temple floors and you're so sweaty and you're not wearing shoes. And so we turned up to this hotel and just didn't necessarily feel like we fitted in. We definitely didn't fit into the mold one, but we didn't necessarily fit into this one either. But it was just a nice, safe landing for us. It was a late landing. We had the next morning off because, you know, the schedule was scrambled and we got to do some shopping. So I got to get some gifts. I had so much energy moving through my body that I got to dance and was playing a lot of Ganesha mantra, which was really nice. And again, I was so ready to like be back in the temples and back on the road. It was really interesting because predominantly I had this feeling of like, this is amazing and I didn't want to stay in that last place, but I didn't come here for a luxury holiday. So we were back on the road again. One of the other really significant towns that we visited in terms of my experience in India was Kanchipuram. I hope I'm getting these names around the right way. The itinerary just jumped and moved around in ways that it needed to. And one of the temples that, or it was actually an ashram, was I think this is correct, the Shankaracharya Kamakoti Ashram, which was another really significant temple. This was probably the day that my experiences in India peaked, for lack of a better word. It was also the day that we traveled then on to Vellore and Peedam, where we stayed for 4 nights at Amma's, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. But yeah, I had a really big experience at that temple where I just felt super connected to the current Shankara that is in the seat there, so the living, even though he wasn't there, he was out visiting. Apparently, I can't remember the exact amount of days. I feel like it's something like they're not allowed to stay at the temple for more than 10 consecutive days, except for in, gosh, I can't think of the word, when there's lots of rain. I want to say typhoon, but I don't feel like that's the right word. Anyway, because it's difficult, impossible, dangerous to travel in that time. And part of the reason for that is that they're here to deliver a message and to engage with the world. And if they're sitting in one temple, maybe they're not doing that. And so he wasn't there, but the energy was just undoubtable. And there were shrines for like Adi Shankara. His shrine was there, and other Shankaras as well. And I feel like, it's over there on my table. I'll get it. This makes me feel like I've definitely told you the right name of the town, because it says Kanchi, short maybe for Kanchipuram on the front there. But I believe it was this Shankara was the shrine that I was sitting at. And, you know, for me, part of how karma and purification and energy was moving through me was not only emotionally, and it was physically, like very physical, where probably up to like 7 times a day I would be on this roller coaster of feeling like I was so nauseous and just so fragile and so exhausted, to the point where I was like, I don't know if I can take this anymore. I feel like I'm going to collapse. And then every time I would hit that point, it would completely clear, and I would feel as if nothing had ever even been happening. And one of the times that happened was in this ashram, or this temple. And I remember standing beside this pole, and actually prior to this, we'd had the opportunity, we're kind of just hanging out at this place, which was so nice. We got to do that at the temples. There was no rush, and they just felt so good being in these spaces. You were never ready to leave. So we'd meditated in there, and we'd had the opportunity to listen to pundits or priests that were training, chanting the Veda live, which is amazing, because that's something that I've learned about in Rishi training as well, and that sometimes I listen to like on tape through my phone, but I never heard it live. So that was really cool. And then, yeah, I think then I was going to the bathroom, and on the way, the pundit who manages, for lack of a better word, I'm using very Western language here, that particular ashram or temple asked me, you know, where are you from? And I was with a few of the other people from the pilgrimage, and explained, and he was like, come, let's have some tea, have some prasad, some food. Prasad is the blessed food from all the ceremonies. And so you don't really say no. And so we all got to go back into what seemed like where the pundits live and sleep, and spend some time there and eat and have tea and just chat. And he took a photo of us and sent it to the Shankara, who was not there, who was out because, you know, he'd maybe been there for 10 days prior. And anyway, we're walking back through the temple, and Abhishek was being performed on the murti of this guy. And so Abhishek is when they do the cleaning and the offerings to the murti. And so the murti is the idol, which is like the statue is the other word of in the shrine of the person, or the expression of the god or the goddess, that the energy is there, that you can go and receive darshan from, which is not even something I can begin to explain. Like the kind of stuff that happens in those spaces is just indescribable. So anyway, we pause, and I'm having this huge wave of that physical purification and karma happening. And I was leaning up against the pole, and one of the other meditation teachers who works with my teacher, Laura, was there, and she said, do you want to just sit down for a second? And I sat down for a second, and I just kept watching the Abhishek, and I'm not going to describe this perfectly, but where they are cleaning the murti at first with these herbal waters, and then the offerings. So they offer different herbs like turmeric, they offer milk, they offer sweet fruits, before there is often then a break where the murti is then dressed with the flowers and in beautiful clothing, and then you come back and you receive the tirtan, which is the blessed water from the Abhishek, which you drink, that has all of the blessings and often mantras chanted into it as well. And so medicine. And yeah, as I was sitting there, I just began to cry, and there was no sadness. It was such a good cry, like a good feeling of things shifting and liberation happening and cleanliness. And Laura, my meditation teacher, sat down beside me and shared with me, it's not just the murti that you're watching being cleansed, that is you. And one of the things I was saying to myself and reminding myself of when I was in these spaces was around me and within me, because God, consciousness, the divine is around me and within me. And so when I'm witnessing that, I'm also witnessing self. And that is one element of what is happening when we sit in these ceremonies, of which we did at least daily, sometimes multiple times daily. And, I had this moment where all of my vision went foggy and I was crying. So I'm wiping away these tears and blinking my eyes, and none of it is clearing. And I realized that the only place that there wasn't fog was when I was really looking in at this murti. Everything else was foggy. And then all of this white light began to shine in, which I've had an experience like that before, but not in India. And it was just such a really beautiful, special experience. And when it was complete, again, all of the physical expression of what was being purified and moved was cleared and gone. So yeah, that was a very significant day on pilgrimage for me. And then we went to Amma's, which I'll talk about in a moment, and I got to receive my advanced mantra for my Vedic meditation practice, and some very big Kundalini energy and shifts happened there too. There's no footage of that ashram that I was talking about because we couldn't film inside there. I think I'll put a photo up here if I can whilst I've been speaking. If you've seen a photo, that's where it was. And then on our way to Amma's, we visited the most ancient temple we saw along the pilgrimage, and it was all outdoors. So you'll see some footage of that one too. It was really cool, actually. I think that the murti there was a Shivalinga, not one of the four that we went and saw in other temples. And we discovered this hole in the wall, and we got to climb through it. And there was this, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Hidden. It's not the word, but it serves. Hidden passageway where you could walk behind the shrine and the murti and out the other side, which was really cool. But that was indoors, so I did not get that bit. And so then we arrived at our next longest stay, which was at Sri Narayani Peedam, which is a spiritual hub created by Amma, who is known as a living, pure incarnation of the divine in the form of Narayani, which is the most pure form of feminine mother energy. I'll pop a link below. So if you want to read more about it or find out more about it, you can. As I mentioned, that first day, I got to receive my advanced mantra for my meditation practice. Some big experiences happened. One of the things that happened was the spirit of a baby appeared, still in the womb, and was like very, very, like a huge vision and like very front and center. And one of the things I was shown to work through in that, and there was a lot of tears and a lot of energy and things happening, was from my maternal lineage. So things held within my mum and within my nana, passed down genealogically, that I had the opportunity to work with and move and shift and release so that it's not passed down through the next generation, which was very special. We also went to our first, we got a tour of Amma's, or the Peedam temple there. It was really funny. I'd heard people describe it as a spiritual Disneyland before, people I know that have been friends of mine. And it was really interesting to hear that same reflection from other people I was on pilgrimage with who hadn't known anything about this place before we arrived. It is just something else. Part of it is a gold-plated temple. There are animals everywhere. The energy is undeniable. There are so many different things being orchestrated the whole time that you're there. It can feel very intense, and it can also like intense in terms of just like the heart cracked open, and receiving that mother energy that Amma brings to that space as well. And then the pujas that Amma performs herself were just indescribable. The things that took place, the shifts that happen, the things that, you know, cannot be comprehended by the intellectual mind or understood, even though you try to, and you've got a million different questions. We were there for Mahashivaratri as well, which was amazing. We got to see like lots of different celebrations and rituals happening that night. There was a fire ceremony that night, some wild dreams that night, lots of very vivid dreams while I was there. But to be honest, I didn't film much. It was very immersive. It was very intense. And I just wanted to be there. And yeah, there were most of the places we were spending time, you couldn't film or use your camera anyway. So there's a little bit, which you'll see now.
Going to see all of Amma's projects this morning. Waste management project, so everything is recycled here. In the whole, all the temples, the ashram, everything is recycled, and it's all done by hand, and it's pretty amazing to see. We've already been to Nataraja, but we're apparently going again. We'll go to Green Shakti, so you'll see where all the trees are in the nursery, all the trees that they're growing, all the reforestation projects. We'll go to the Goshala, so we'll come in here and you'll be able to meet all the cows and feed the cows. And then we will go and serve some food to people in the temple. So everyone who comes to the temple gets given food.
And then came the time to move on from there, which everybody said that had visited Ammas before and spent time at Sri Narayani Peedam had said, you know, things begin to lift and lighten when it's time to leave. And I just felt fucking amazing. Like I was ready to find a party the night before we left. I just felt so good. And it was so nice because, yeah, all of the karmic shifts really started to slow down and lighten for me from there on. They were still happening, but totally different intensity. We were late to the next place because, again, India and Amma had her own plans. We had a private session with Amma that day where we'd planned to leave that morning and we didn't leave till the afternoon. So it was, I think we were in the car traveling, definitely sunset, and it was dark by the time we got there. And then the drivers hadn't been to this location. And so Maps has taken us down these country roads with the biggest potholes where we're like, are we going to have to like quit and head back and find a different way? Because we're, you know, and the weight of the luggage in the cars, let alone 13 people. And it was just another one of those moments where it's like, here we are, and it all worked out. The next morning was the 3:30 a.m. rise where we climbed a mountain. I need to find the name of this mountain. One moment. Okay, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but I believe, and this is actually in Tiruvannamalai. So I may have got the name of the town wrong before. Doing my best. But I believe the name of the mountain is Arunachala. We had a tour guide with us as we were climbing this mountain. And one of the things that he shared is that any soul that finds themselves on that mountain, walking that mountain, has been called there. There is no doubt about it. And that you can come up against, let's just use the word like difficulty or any inner conflict that is there as you are climbing that mountain. And he was not wrong. I was not in a good mood that day. And there was a lot of internal dialogue happening. And, you know, this trip, this pilgrimage was just jam-packed with so much more than what, for me, was relevant to intellectually understand. And I say that because I've just read this, you know, caption on one of the reels that shows this, of where we climbed and has the footage of it. I'm not going to pronounce these things right, but this is expressed in the old Tamil saying, to see Chira Ambaram, to be born in Tiruvarur, to die at Varanasi, or even to think of Arunachala is to be assured of liberation. So Arunachala is the mountain that we climbed. It's the unbounded self, the fire of wisdom that cannot burn you, only what you are not. As Ramana Maharishi, which is the ashram we walked through to get to the base of this mountain, and you'll see some footage, you'll see like the arch of the sign that has that name. In the end, everyone must come to Arunachala. In the end, only the self remains. And so that's the climbing of the mountain, that the fire of what we were not was coming up to be burnt away. This was our last 2 nights on pilgrimage. So that morning, and then we got to walk through a quieter Indian town, and we had breakfast in this loft cafe. And then we went back to the ashram we were staying at. You'll get to see some footage of what that looked like. We learnt a Shiva therapeutic technique. And then the next day, we went to another temple that afternoon and night. And then the next morning, we finished with a 4-hour, I believe, fire ceremony with Pondicherry, which again, like, indescribable. The power of these ceremonies and the things that are shifting through you purely from being present and engaging with only an open heart. You are not trying, you are not efforting at anything, and you are so taken care of. And this is where I'm leaving the storytelling of this pilgrimage. There's a little bit more footage. It will remain something that is very deeply etched and imprinted in my heart forever. It is absolutely at the top of my life experiences, and yeah, something I've been so, so grateful to experience and receive.
सरस्वती देवी नमो नमः गंगा यमुना सरस्वती देवी नमो नमः कम प्लीज गंगा यमुना सरस्वती देवी नमो नमः गंगा यमुना सरस्वती देवी नर्मदा कावेरी ओम शिव शिव शंकर हर हर शंकर महादेव शंकर शिव 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 सूर्य प्रचोदयात् ओम स्वाहा सूर्य के मेंटेनेंस शिवाय नमो ओम नमः शिवाय 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 शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय शिव शिव शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमः ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमः ओम जय जय शंकर ओम हर हर शंकर महादेव शंकर जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव. Look, Ganesh, take blessing. Please go and take blessing.